Names of Pod.
From Atlanta,
where we all live like a refugee.
it's the 9 Billion Names of Pod with Dan Bauman and Michael Reed. I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Mary Jane's favorite dance partner.
So, let's talk about some stuff.
No.
God damn it, why do we keep having to do this shit? But
I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it until I can't say it anymore, because I'll be the one that's passed away. We're getting to that age where, you know, some of the cool older artists of our youth are now passing away. Some a bit too early.
yeah.
You know, I've said my rule before, and I'll say it again. If you get to 80... I'm still upset when you pass away, but 80's good. That's
80's good.
That's solid. I don't want anyone to die, but if you got to 80, my grief over your passing is a little less.
It's sad, but it's not a shock.
Right, exactly.
You know?
It's like Grandma lived to be 94. Like, you know what? Good on Grandma.
Good on Grandma,
Not
yeah.
bad. You know, Grandma lived to be, 62. No.
Yeah, no.
No. That's a no. And in this case, we've lost 66. We lost Tom Petie. He was born later in October, and he died in early October. So he died in his birth month.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make it to 67.
Right. Now, okay. Before we get into his legacy, there was some weird shit that went around with his. I think it was just a jump in the gun to get on the story.
As
thing.
best as I can understand, word got out that he was taken from his home in full cardiac arrest, unresponsive. They got him to the hospital, and at that point, the word started. Someone said, "Oh, he must be dead." And
I believe it was TMZ who broke it, and
TMZ is yes, they are right about things every once in a while, but they're just the bottom of the fucking barrel, in my opinion.
yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that, look at that actress, she got fat, or look at that person, they died, or, I'm just, you know what? I don't really like TMZ, but it got out that he had a serious cardiac arrest, that he was dead, he wasn't dead. It turns out that people were mourning his passing probably 12 to 18 hours before he actually died.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
And didn't his daughter put out a scathing statement?
She was like, Jesus Christ. Now, understand, of course, for us, it's somebody that we know / don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up with Tom Pettie.
But
many of us did, but we're not related to him.
Yeah.
So whether we mourn now or in 24 hours, it's not that big of a deal to us. But that's her father.
Yeah.
That's her father. And everyone's so, interested in jumping on Wikipedia as quickly as possible. I'm the one who actually wrote that he was dead because, I mean, that's going to be on your gravestone. He got the Pettie death on Wikipedia first. Here lies this guy.
Yeah.
Who cares? And I was very happy to see that NME and Billboard said that he had a cardiac arrest and was in the hospital.
Right.
Not anything about the death.
Yeah.
CNN didn't even have anything about either the cardiac arrest or the death until it was confirmed. Because they're fake news.
Yes.
Yes, because anything they say is untrue.
Yes.
But we're not going there. This is not political podcast.
Not political this time.
I didn't want to believe. I mean, I assumed that yes, he had a. I wasn't sure he was dead or not. I mourned him probably a bit prematurely on Facebook, but I didn't truly believe that he was dead until the Heartbreakers posted their thing.
Yeah.
That said, our friend,
friend,
husband,
bandmate.
father, blah blah blah, passed away at that kind of thing. And this is kind of, it's reflective of the culture. I just the rush to I don't know. It's kind of like how newspapers have the obits for many, famous people ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if someone passes away in their 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, maybe they don't have one ready because, although Tom Pettie did do a shit ton of drugs in the 80s, he got past that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't like, well, you know, I'm sure Keith Richards' obit has been written since about, 65, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just update it every year.
And it's like, yeah, he's still alive, alive. But with Petie, no. And as far as Facebook and the culture, everyone, I kind of think they get off on mourning a bit. I don't know. I mean, and I'm part of it as well. When I heard that that he might be dead, I started playing Petie. I was just like, oh yeah, why did I never go see him live?
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? With my taste in music, I could go to a show every day for 10 years and still not get through all the artists that I
right.
either love or like. You got to go when you can afford it, when it works in your schedule. My friend Melanie actually was at one of his last Hollywood Bowl shows.
Really?
I didn't know this until he passed away. He was on a 40th anniversary tour.
Okay.
And he died, I think, within 2 weeks after finishing that tour.
Oh, wow.
So part of me, the little OCD in me went, good, okay. He tidied that up artistically.
Yeah.
He had a new album out. He did the 40th anniversary. There's a nice button there. It's not like he was, a third of the way through a new album and passed away, or 2 dates into a tour and passed away.
Yeah.
Not that makes much difference in anything in the scheme of things.
But
it seemed nice. He was, he was celebrating the anniversary, did a nice hit show, It worked for me. I mean,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Saying, well, thanks, Michael. I'm glad you're okay with the timing of Tom's death.
Yeah.
Like, well, I am. I mean, if it has to happen, in the month of October, let it happen after the shows.
Yeah.
You know what the last song he ever played?
Last Dance, Mary Jane? Or
No.
I don't know.
American Girl.
Oh.
American Girl.
That's pretty fitting. I mean, that's one of his biggest.
That's one of his absolute classics.
Yeah.
It's I can't remember if that's his. I think Breakdown was a hit. Was his first hit, but American Girl was his second.
Okay.
But both off the debut album, which was a pretty freaking good album.
Damn the Torpedoes. Right?
No, that's the third record.
Okay.
The first one's just Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Now, what's Joan Jett's backing band?
Oh, Blackhearts.
Okay, good.
That I know, yeah.
Someone tried to convince me. No. I mean, him and Joan Jett, they had the same name. I went, no. I think you're getting the hearts confused.
Yeah, that's all.
There's hearts in related. I mean, Ann and Nancy Wilson are
also, yeah.
Yeah, it's like anything in the cardiovascular, pulmonary thing. They're all related.
Yeah, it's all one band.
Yeah,
it's just,
So, R.I.P. Tom Petty. He was a hell of a guy. I've got some tidbits and factoids that I'll pepper throughout the conversation.
Well, please give us one. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the one that I remember the most and is not, like right on his Wikipedia page, you have to dial down into some albums to find out what happened during the recording of my favorite Tom Petty record.
Okay.
Called Southern Accents.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, I love that record. It is a little slicker and a little more 80s perhaps sounding than some of his other stuff. He had done a demo for the song Rebels.
Okay.
Rebel. Sorry, Rebel, not Rebels, Rebel. And he couldn't get the arrangement. He couldn't flush out the arrangement the way he wanted to in the studio. He was, running up against a brick wall. No, it's Rebels. It is Rebels, plural.
Okay.
Got to get it right. Yeah. And he was so angry, he went upstairs and he punched a wall and broke. He messed up his hand really, really bad. This was like 1984. Oof. And they were saying he may not play guitar again.
Oh, wow.
And I just kept thinking to myself, first of all, did he punch and hit a stud? Because if you punch hard enough, you can put your hand right through drywall and not be too
bad.
Might
not have been drywall. Might have been...
Who knows? But anyway, I thought, wow. Turns out he was high as hell. A lot of drugs.
Yeah.
This is during his big drug phase. And obviously he, survived and came back and played and everything was fine. But there was, for a period of time there, people thought, shit, maybe this is it for Tom Petty, at least as a guitar player. He could probably still write tunes and sing, but he wouldn't be a guitarist.
Yeah, that happens a lot. A lot of guitar players have had that where some...
Are they temperamental?
Well, no, I mean, just like the doctors will always come, he'll never play guitar again. They always end up coming back.
Well, Pete Townsend has had tinnitus for, 30
years? Yeah.
Since
the 80s?
Yeah, exactly. And he's still,
Yeah, just have in-ear monitors and you turn them down.
I tell you, in-ear monitors is saving a generation of musicians' hearing so that they'll be able to function far better in their older years than the people from the 60s do now.
Well, bands now, I mean, they don't even need amps on stage. They don't need amps. They have in-ear monitors. The drums, a lot of bands don't even have live drums. It's triggers. So they're hitting a trigger that sounds like I don't like that either. I'd be having grown up playing in bands.
But yeah, there's no reason to stick a microphone on a massive stack of amps where you could feel the back of your skull vibrate as you're up on stage.
Right.
So you're taking away. You're still deafening the audience because they're the ones that are in front of the massive speakers.
Right. That's why Rush for the last couple tours was a big gag, because they were playing through, and it's well known in the music industry that, like, I got to open for, of all bands, Molly Hatchet, strangely enough, here in Peachtree City Amphitheater.
Hey, they're satisfied men.
Yeah. My brother-in-law happened to be running sound for it, so he was walking us around, and it was the complete cliche story of, there's a wall of Marshall stacks, and you walk around the back, and there's nothing in them, and there's one little Fender amp with a mic on it, and there's 2 kick drums and only one mic.
They're trying to evoke that 70s vibe.
It looks like it. You don't need that.
And you know what? It's stagecrafted one way or the other.
Yeah, of course.
Unless you have a big set that is stagecraft. Why not a stack of amps? They're still getting the same performance.
Like I said, and Rush did that especially on the last tour, because they, like, Geddy Lee would have, a bunch of bass amps, and then after a while it was like a couple of bass amps and a refrigerator, and then it just became like washing machines.
Yeah.
And even on the last tour, they're not, they would print their whole tour list, their whole gear list, and it was never, there were no amps. They would all play DI direct, and you could mix it better in the house. And with the in-ears
and save their hearing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, I fully support that, and I can also understand why Molly Hatchet and other bands would want to evoke, especially ones
bands
started out with having their back of their skulls melted off in the 70s and 60s,
because you had
70s.
to. That's the only way to get
there
it
was
loud
no
enough.
Exactly. Pretty much now, I think we're well on our way within the next 10-15 years is that the band stays together in this special building. They'll just wake up and perform on the same exact stage, and it'll hologram to different venues.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, even a lot of the bands, like the guitar players, the whole show is run off a computer. Like, all the effects changes and all the tonal changes in the guitars and all.
So they don't have to get on their pedals anymore.
There aren't even pedals. Like, there's either an engineer doing that, or it's all programmed. And it just kicks in at the right time.
Yeah,
they're still playing. I mean, it's just they're not stomping on a box. That's the only difference. I know I know the feeling, but
yeah, I mean, I like to think, I'm not a musician, so, far be it for me to cast aspersions on anyone's creative choice, but I like the feeling that if you're up there, when you're getting to that point, you're like, here he goes, and he looks down and hits the pedal, and you know that next section's coming, and you feel he's involved. If it's just like doo-doo-doo-doo, and it just it seems more.
Well, there's a visceral.
All this machinery making modern music.
It can still be open-hearted.
Yeah. Talk about compromises.
Yeah.
So back to Tom Petty. What's your what's your history?
I've always kind of skirted around Tom Petty. I mean, I'm not. I know a lot of Tom Petty, like, by almost osmosis and accident. I wasn't a giant, like, I'm gonna buy the new Tom Petty album. It's just I have heard and have had to learn to play dozens of Tom Petty songs. I think the 2 albums I know the best are probably, well, 3 if you skew a little bit.
I bet you I can guess one of them.
Okay.
Full Moon Fever.
Of course. Everybody. That's the huge, explosive
He
80s.
did better with that album, which was technically a solo album, but most of the Heartbreakers made appearances. Mike Campbell produced, so it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
As opposed to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Right.
What are the other two?
The other one for sure is Wildflowers.
Which is also a Tom Petty solo record, not a Heartbreakers
right.
album.
And if you and this is just ones I know the best. First and second Wilburys album. I mean, that doesn't count as a Tom Petty album, but he was part of that.
Can you name all the Wilburys?
Not the like that. Well, like who the real guys? Yeah, not the fake names that they.
Well,
use.
yeah.
Well, Tom Petty, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne.
No, Jeff Lynne.
Well, he kind of
subbed in for Roy Orbison, who had passed away on Volume 3.
Yeah.
What happened to Volume 2, you ask?
There isn't one.
No, there is not one.
Yeah.
George Harrison said, "Let's call it Volume 3. Let's keep them on their toes." I like George.
Yep.
That's pretty
Bob
funny.
Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
Okay, wait. Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, George Harrison,
Roy Orbison.
And there's one more, right? It's fifth.
No, I think that's
that was it. Okay. Yeah. So I knew.
And then we got Jeff Lynne stepping in. I think he was producer on the first one and the second one, and then also played.
But he sang on them. I know he did.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that it was the Wilburys stuff that got Jeff Lynne to be the person that produced the Beatles, quote unquote, comeback / anthology singles. Do you remember in the mid '90s?
Yeah.
You know, the first new Beatles song and video in 25 years, and I watched it and went, it's okay. You know, solid. You know, the video was really impressive.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, the whole, the flying and all the, the history of everything.
And I kind of remember there was like the houses and like the blue meanies would pop out.
Oh yeah,
it was all
exactly.
like a retro.
Basically, they said, all right, what's all the all the iconography of the Beatles.
You're not going to do something new and innovative. It's the Beatles,
exactly.
And it was.
They're not going to be running down the street being chased by middle-aged women like,
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to do something that wasn't the Beatles, and I mean, it was what was it? It was like demos or leftover tapes.
Basically, what
or
happened
something?
was that Yoko Ono gave the 3 surviving Beatles 2 unreleased, completely circulated demos that John had done that never became anything. And what happened was they tracked that into it so that John was a part of the recording. Because that was their thing. They said, we don't want to do anything as the 3 of us. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
And like, I can understand that. And they got that, and it definitely sounds very processed and kind of ethereal.
Yeah,
because it's just him on a crappy, probably a Radio Shack condenser tape. I mean,
I'm sure it was a little more, high tech, but it was as high tech as you could get in whenever he did it.
Well, no, not at all. It wasn't.
Oh, it was like a Beatles thing.
This is
Beatles
like,
era.
No. This was stuff that he had demoed in his solo years. It was his voice.
Yeah.
It was his composition, or at least the beginnings of a composition, beginnings of a song.
So it was just kind of a dictated.
Right. Well, just
like
how
an idea.
Well, you know how music they put it down just to get it down on tape. They took that and worked it into 2 songs.
Yeah. They
Freeze
built
the Bird
songs around
and Real
That's
Real
what I
Love.
remember, yeah.
And yeah, right. I cannot for the life of me remember Real Love at all.
Freeze the Bird is
Freeze the Bird
one.
I remember very well, and that's on my iPod because it's a solid song.
Yeah, and you got to remember that was what
1995. 95.
So that's still pre-digital recording.
Not at all. Digital started in like 80. I think Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms from 80, I want to say 5, is the first all digitally recorded album ever.
Okay.
So, but I mean,
it wasn't like as high tech as it is now.
Well, not as highly processed, but I mean, if you're John Lennon, at the Dakota in 77, and you got this idea for a song "Free as a Bird," he probably just literally got a cassette tape.
I just meant like putting that into a into a new song. You know, it wasn't as elegant and slick. You couldn't
Right,
do
exactly.
as much to it.
And the way they did it, they processed it to make it sound like it was an intended effect. Like we would have done it the same way if John was still with us.
Right, and they did a lot of that anyway.
But anyway, enough of the Beatles.
I know.
We don't get sidetracked here, people. We never do.
No.
So that's how Jeff Lynne, because of his involvement with the Traveling Wilburys, I'm sure that George Harrison said, you know, hey, you know, George Martin doesn't want to do this. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have the hearing anymore. He doesn't have the chops that, you know, he doesn't feel he can do it. Let's give it to, you know, to Jeff Lynne.
Yeah, and he did it. And I don't know. I'm sure he was doing more before that, but that's like his main thing now, is being a giant producer.
Well, I mean, yes, but he just, you know, he's had ELO revamp for a couple of years. There's a new live DVD and album coming out. So, I mean, if you listen to that, to some of those ELO hits, it's kind of disco Beatles with orchestra.
Yeah,
it's very Beatles.
ELO is a very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So let's talk about that for 20 minutes.
Right.
Because that has something to do with Tom
So
Petty.
Jeff Lynne played with Tom Petty. So
yeah, exactly.
But back to the records. Yeah, Full Moon Fever. So that's
Full Moon Fever. Okay.
Wildflowers. And I mean, I know some, and I know a ton of the older songs. I mean, I will go, okay, not to shift, but I have always said back in the day when music videos were the biggest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That Tom Petty's video, which I later learned he hated, for Don't Come Around Here No More, is probably my favorite video of all time. I think it's one of the most innovative, creative videos of all time.
You mean the one with cannibalism?
Yes, cannibalism.
Seriously. That was the benchmark for you know, moral outrage in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
You know, between look, pyromania, destroy, fire with a gun sight. Oh, so
My sweet
terrible.
Satan.
Look, there's a woman being eaten alive. She's cake. It's called surrealism, you stupid.
Have you ever read Alice in Wonderland?
I said, lady, you better hold on to your bloomers, because Marilyn Manson's about 10 years away, and you are going to fucking shit your lunch.
Get that. Twisted Sister was on its way. And you know.
Oh, that was... See, that to me is more regressive. That's more taking New York Dolls to another...
Absolutely.
You know, like, oh, there's somewhat attractive men and, you know, kind of punky.
They weren't. Not
and
at
then,
all.
you know, Twisted's oh, no.
We're ugly.
We're not even going to try to be attractive. We're going to make it look like, you know, like a clown and a kabuki troupe got together and had a horrible orgy. Yeah, boy, to think of
the way that things happen. But to get worked up over that's a brilliant video.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Brilliant video. And which, if you haven't seen it, it's the one Alice in Wonderland type.
Oh, I've seen it.
No, I meant
I love
the other people who are not in the room with us at the moment.
Gee, I wonder what album that might have come off of.
It's Full Moon Fever, isn't it?
No. Oh, God, no. That's way
I told you, I am no Tom Petty expert. I know the
Southern accents.
Oh, is it that you're okay?
It's Southern accents. I tell you, that album to me is pretty much a freaking masterpiece. The 3 singles that came off it were really good. Don't Come Around Here No More.
Yep.
Make It Better, in parentheses, Forget About Me. Funky with horns, like very unpetty.
Okay.
Very unpetty, but still very petty. This is the one where the whole band climbs inside a woman's ear and performs in her skull, and like they keep cutting away to like, what's in my head, you know. And it's amazing. Petty had a microphone that would kind of swing around like adamant in off the Manners and Physique tour, where it would like rotate around, like it would go to like a 45-degree angle and then swirl around. It was really cool.
Okay.
And it had a huge horn section, something that he wasn't really known for.
Not at all.
Not a big horn guy. And then, of course, the aforementioned Rebels.
Yeah.
Which is a great song. For me, probably one of the best songs on the album is the title track, Southern Accents.
Okay.
It's a great ballad. that for the very first time, it made me feel like I was a little bit in touch with Southern culture in a way. And this is me, Southern California boy, who had never been. Well, actually, I guess we drove through the South on a family trip, but I was like 8, 9 years old. I didn't know where that,
Yeah.
I thought Kentucky was an awesome place. I didn't realize it was full of, racist and Trump voters. So
well, they weren't Trump voters then.
I think they always were. They always were. They're just waiting to fulfill their destiny. But that album to me is just, that pretty much was where I got into Tom Petty with that record. I knew all the singles, before then because it was, played on local classic rock radio, which at that time was rock radio.
Yes. Yes,
Let's face it, classic rock radio now is playing songs from like the late 90s.
Yeah, playing the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's like,
yes!
ow. Oh, God.
Oh, that gets me right in the me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what happened with our grandparents? They didn't have any of that. There is no classic radio for them. It never happened because rock happened before, when they were kids. It was like the 30s or something like that.
It was
grandparents.
It was big band and jazz. And
that
was well it was.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. Pretty soon we're gonna have the same thing like in the 90s or the aughts where hey, the Temptations are playing. Yeah, there's one kind of original Temptation. He started in the band in like 74. The Temptations been around since the 60s, but he's the one that's left.
Well, that's a whole different thing because there was 2 versions of the Temptations going around.
All those Motown bands.
Yeah, they split up and they fought and they've...
You find out that, there's one guy who's actually the brother of this kind of original guy.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for, like, the reunion tour of, Talking Heads with, maybe Tina Weymouth and nobody else.
Yeah,
or something like that.
There's certain bands that have done a lot of that, but
there was an attempt to tour Frankie Goes to Hollywood in the mid to late 90s without Holly Johnson and bill it as Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yeah,
and no.
But
there's a little more integrity now, and personality is a little more prevalent in the music, starting in the 70s, 80s, and going forward.
Right.
Where before, I couldn't identify a Temptation if one came up and sang in my face. I couldn't identify them.
Right.
So you can get away with that. But when you grow up with MTV and the posters and looking at the album sleeves and these people, you go, That's not right.
Yeah, I think Foreigner was touring. It was weird. Foreigner was touring a few years ago, and it was only like with Lou Gramm.
No, not Lou Gramm.
The other guy.
It was Mick. I think it's Mick Jones, not the Clash Mick Jones. The other one. Well, yeah, because technically Foreigner is his band,
right? But the band was Jason Bonham and Jeff Pilson from Dokken, so it was like.
It's a pedigreed thing,
right?
But for me, Foreigner is not Foreigner without Lou Gramm.
And certain bands just won't do it. That's why Rush is done. They're done touring because they're like, we're not going to do it with some other guy. Or when Neil Peart's family, had all the tragedies, they're like, well, I guess we're done because there is no.
I don't think we're certainly not going to get a new album from the Heartbreakers.
No.
Now they may do some gigs as a tribute to Tom, much like the Revolution do it as a tribute to Prince. But I don't think we're gonna, he was the chief songwriter.
Well, it was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Exactly,
Yeah.
So that's not gonna happen, which is a shame because let's face it, the Heartbreakers were a tight group.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still gonna work, just not as the Heartbreakers.
And you know what? Maybe they'll do something along the lines of like, we still want to play together. Let's just do our own thing. We're not calling it the Heartbreakers at all. And maybe they say,
or maybe they find some other singer, for lack of a better example, like Stevie Nicks and the Heartbreakers, or so and so and the Heartbreakers.
Stevie Nicks actually performed with the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, I know they did.
Remember Pack Up the Plantation? Yeah. They did that awesome cover of the Searchers song "Needles and Pins," which was awesome. That was the live album that came right after Southern Accents. So I was in full moon fever before it was fashionable at that point. So, and unfortunately, after that live album, he did an album called "Let Me Up, I've Had Enough." Not a good record.
that's gonna happen though.
Jammin' Me is the quote unquote kind of hit. I mean, it made the top 20,
right?
But not just
every artist has peaks and valleys.
Yeah, but then he came back with Full Moon Fever as a solo. So
yeah, and that was like a right time kind. I mean, it's a brilliant record, but it was
5
like,
times platinum. That's more than he ever did on any other record with the Heartbreakers. Even though technically this is with the Heartbreakers.
So okay, I just thought of a funny story. I can remember the very first Tom Petty song I heard. And it wasn't by Tom. Well, it was Tom Petty, but it wasn't Tom Petty. Okay, as a kid, this is very silly. This is very silly. I had a record, called Chipmunk Punk, and it was a chipmunk, Alvin and the
This says
Chipmunks.
everything about you, everything.
And it was basically sped up rock songs. There was no punk on it, from what I can remember, and one of them was Refugee by Tom Petty, I believe. I think it was, or was it Breakdown? No, it had to be. I think it was Refugee. And it was like, there was like Billy Joel, and I think it was just a bad pun of a record. But then, years later, I was like, oh, that's that song that
that's that Chipmunk
weird
song.
Chipmunk record. I never confused that it was an actual.
I can't imagine, unless it definitely must have been a cover, because Tom Petty was well known to be very highly ethical and very protective of his music, and he would not say, sure, just go ahead and take my song, speed it up, and call it Chipmunk Punk. It's a cover. It has
to be. Yeah, I'm assuming a recreation.
Yeah,
like all those songs were.
Actually, I got a funny story about his integrity there. In '81, Hard Promises was getting ready to be released, and this, I think, was the third. I think it was the third Tom Petty record, and MCA, his label at the time, had always been selling records. The going price for an album was $8.98.
Yeah.
Wow. $8.98. Remember when albums were remember when anything
was $8.98?
$8.98. And they said, you know what? We've got a new Steely Dan album coming out, and the soundtrack to Xanadu is going to be huge. We like this Tom Petty.
Speaking of Jeff Lynne.
Yeah. It all comes back to Jeff.
For some reason.
You hear that, John Bowen? John Bowen's an illegitimate love child of Jeff Lynne and Jeff Lynne.
Okay.
He just loves Jeff Lynne.
Uh-huh.
And MCA said, we're going to raise it $1 for these very highly anticipated records. And Tom Petty threw a fit. He said, hell no. And he fought with them on it. He debated not turning in the album because, they didn't have it. He said, no, if you're going to charge $9.98 for it, I'm not giving you the record. Or his other idea, which I thought would have been hilarious, he said, I'll turn in the album. The album is now called $8.98. That's the name of the record. Neither of those things happened because MCA backed down and it was released under the $8.98 price point. And I went, I like that about Tom.
That's
now, of course,
cool.
He lost the battle in the long run because for a while there, oh sure, the CDs are $17.99.
Right?
Are you kidding me?
I remember that. Yeah.
No wonder used CD stores were huge in the late '80s, '90s, and maybe in the maybe 2000, 2001. I used to spend thousands of dollars a year on CDs. So much. Not anymore. No, not anymore. So Refugee is your first.
I mean, technically, yes. I mean,
you have a memory. I mean, who?
I have a memory.
I mean, there are some artists, some songs that you can't even remember when you experienced them first because they're like part of the air.
Yeah,
they're part of just radio. Like, oh, there's that song. It's I don't have a memory of listening like, who is this?
Right, exactly.
This is awesome. It's just it was
always
right
there.
I mean, there are other artists where you can go, oh yes, this was the first time I heard this. Not with Tom Petty.
No, it was just always in the air. I never sought out Tom Petty. It was just always, probably from MTV and like that video. I think, like I said, Don't Come Around Here No More was the first time I knew I put a name to the face or whatever. Like, this is that guy. And then I was like, oh, Tom Petty, and 500 other songs popped in. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, the Don't Come Around Here No More video was about, I want to say about 4 years after MTV launched. Although someone just did a list of, here are the first, 50 videos that MTV played. And, of course, everyone knows
the first one,
Buggles. What were the other ones? And I'm looking at it like, never heard of it. They played that? Oh, my God.
Well, they only had...
Right, exactly. At that point...
20 videos or something that there were.
They had a few more than that, but it wasn't...
And they just played them all the time.
Basically, the first year of MTV was like... Remember the old Night Flight show?
Vaguely.
On USA?
Yeah, vaguely.
They would play videos. They would do little funny skits. They'd show foreign films. They'd show shorts and stuff like that. For that first, year or so, MTV was like, we got to fill airtime. We can't, play this video, 10 times, an hour. So let's, we'll do a concert here and we'll play this. And they're reaching deep, and I mean deep, into to get any video that they could actually play. Now, fast forward a couple of years, and it was highly coveted to be, on MTV.
Right.
And MTV wasn't begging for videos. They were going, no, we're not gonna play that. And labels would offer, like, we'll give you the world premiere. None of this VH1 stuff. We won't put it on Night Flight or anything else. You get the world premiere. Remember when they used to have MTV world premiere video?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I still have some old VHS tapes that have, that on there. It's like, oh my God, it's the new Prince video for Raspberry Beret. Got to record that.
Yep.
I would have to say that my first song that I remember is probably Refugee.
Yeah. The actual version, not the Chipmunk version.
Yeah. It just, But here's the classic hits that I consider his first era of music, like pretty much like the first 4 records. Before Southern Accents, and we got the hits. Remember Breakdown,
yeah.
American Girl,
Yep.
I Need to Know.
Yep.
Wow. Don't Do Me Like That.
Don't do me like that.
Right. Refugee.
Yep.
Here Comes My Girl.
Yep.
And The Waiting.
Yep.
That's the first classic. That's the classic rock era, as far as I'm concerned. Then you get a little bit of a transition album called Long After Dark that has my favorite Tom Petty song on it. You Got Lucky. It's petty, but it's not petty. I think this is kind of the first album of the MTV generation that he released and did a like a high concept video. Remember, this is the guy where the bands come in, like it's like a futuristic wasteland. And there's a tent in the middle of nowhere.
Vaguely.
And they come in and they turn on the machines, and it's guitars are there. It's you remember that? We'll put it up on the UB and throw that up there for you. But for some reason, I just love that video. I love that song, and it's not very Tom Petty-ish.
Huh.
I mean, it's petty, but it's not classic rock. It doesn't have that 70s classic rock feel. He was, this was from 82. He was still doing the classic 70s rock feel, The Waiting, Here Comes My Girl.
Yep.
That's in 81, but he's still got that 70s feel. 82 is when he kind of switched and went, I'm going to kind of embrace a little more synthesizer, a little more laid-back style. It was really good.
Yep.
And then, of course, after the Long After Dark album, we got the Southern Accents album.
Yep.
Now, what do you think? What do you think of the Traveling Wilburys? I'm curious.
Oh, I enjoyed it. They're good songs. They're just good, fun songs. And, to have all those ridiculous legends in the same band is, it's a gimmick for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But they're good records. Because even the second one has a couple of good songs on it. The Wilbury Twist.
I think Volume 3 definitely was diminishing returns
for sure
at that point.
But
good God, I mean, like I said, you've got. Let me think. Is there anyone in the Traveling Wilburys that's not a stone cold solid legend?
No,
I can't. No, maybe Jeff Lynne by the second one.
Yeah,
but you know what? Pretty
he still counts.
Pretty legendary.
He's just the least known of those names.
Exactly. Remember you saying about in the Beatles, George Harrison is one of the greatest songwriters in the world. Unfortunately, he was in a band with two greatest songwriters in the world.
Time, yeah.
It was like, what are you going to do? Poor Ringo.
Yeah.
I can hit him peace. I can hit him drums.
Yeah, in any other room, Jeff Lynne is the most legendary guy until Bob Dylan and Roy Orbison and George Harrison.
As far as I'm concerned, you just Dylan and Orbison walk in. It's like, sorry, And Orbison goes back. I mean, that's like Sun Records
50s,
shit.
Yeah,
So that's old school. He predates all those suckers.
All those guys,
and unfortunately, that's why he was the the first one to go.
Yeah.
I do remember in the 80s he released an album called, I think, Mystery Girl. And I can't remember the name of the song, but he had a solid hit off of it.
Didn't he do something with Bonnie Raitt? Did he did an out? I know he did like a duet with somebody that got pretty famous before he died.
Possibly.
Yeah. I want to say Bonnie Raitt. I want to say Katie Lang, but I don't think that's right.
Both are definite possibilities. Yeah. I mean, both of them are more Bonnie Raitt more than Katie Lang, have that roots, feel to their music.
Yeah.
And although Bonnie Raitt kind of slicked it up in the mid 90s, a little more adult AOR, stuff.
Right, but she's a blues guitar player.
Oh yeah, well, listen to her stuff from the the 70s. It's it's come a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
So, So, what is your favorite Tom Petty song? We've talked about mine. I've foisted it upon you. Or do you have one? I mean, you don't have to have a favorite song of every artist we talk about.
I don't know if I have a favorite. I have some I like to, from the musician side, that I really enjoy playing.
Okay, that's a good question.
Like
what are the Tom Petty songs that you play in your band?
It's funny. We had a gig last night, and we were trying to dredge up all the Tom Petty stuff that we knew because we don't do it as regularly.
Right.
And I kept saying, "Let's do Free Fallin'," and we don't normally do Free Fallin'.
Yeah.
And we're like, everyone kept looking at each other and saying, "No, the other one." And the other one is, now I can't get it out of my head. Not Free Fallin'. Hold on. Learning to Fly is the one that we play.
Okay.
And
I knew you'd remember eventually.
It took a lot longer than it should have. But yeah,
which is from the album that he did with the Heartbreakers after Full Moon Fever.
Right.
That's the one that had also Into the Great Wide Open.
Into the Great Wide Open. And what's the one? What's the one that kept getting censored? So let's get to the point. Let's smoke, roll another joint. They kept cutting that.
You don't know how it feels.
They kept cutting that or flipping that. The whole line about roll another joint, which is insane.
Because if you hear the word joint, you'll become addicted.
You'll become a drug
Now
addict.
that's reefer madness. That is the definition of reefer freaking madness. My God.
I think I would say my favorite Tom Petty song, would probably be American Girl. I mean, it's just a ridiculous classic.
I mean, that opening. Dun, 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 dun. You know who ripped that off?
Who?
The Strokes.
Huh.
Listen to the song Last Night by The Strokes. They even acknowledged it, that they pretty much ripped off the essence of that. They didn't literally rip it off, but it's more than a hat tip or an homage. They took large chunks of that. And Tom Petty knew about it, and he said, what are you going to do? Whereas...
I think I know where you're going.
What?
The Sam Smith thing?
Not the Sam. I wasn't going to do the Sam Smith thing, but yes. I Won't Back Down.
Won't Back Down. He did a Stay With Me, I think it was.
Yeah,
the name of his
and I
song.
did listen to the side-by-side,
Well, okay.
That's very similar, but I don't know.
Here's the thing about it. From a musician standpoint, it's a 3-chord song.
Right.
And it just happens to be in a similar key, if not the same key, just slower. But there are a million 3-chord songs. But Sam Smith was like, yeah, you're right. It sounds a lot like Tom Petty, so we're going to cut him in on it. And I was like, good for him.
Hey, guess what? And he acknowledged it, and it was maybe a story of one day.
Yeah.
Whereas the Blurred Lines thing went on for a year.
Yeah.
Because they preemptively sued the Marvin Gaye estate and all. I'm like, just...
just cop to it and realize.
Well, I mean, I feel bad that, like, George Harrison, getting back to George Harrison, remember the song My Sweet Lord?
Yes.
Apparently, subconsciously, and I believe this, he cribbed some bit of He's So Fine by, I think it was the Chiffons.
Well, again, and it's just there's only so many musical structures. There's only so many chord progressions.
Sometimes it's better just to give a writing credit and, you know, a point or a
sucks if you
half
didn't,
a point.
It sucks if you didn't mean it, but if you're going to do a 1-4-5 chord progression in a certain key, it's going to sound like a ton of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that people don't steal shit, but you basic
James
rock and
Cameron, no, I'm sorry, that's another.
I'm talking music, not. But there's only so many chords in rock and roll that, you know, you can do a basic rock and roll like Chuck Berry. I mean, Johnny B. Good is a million other songs, you know, a million other songs. So, but again, it sucks if you get kind of caught up in that trap,
right?
But if you just, you know what, you're right. It does sound a lot like your thing, and I'm sorry.
Remember Red Hot Chili Peppers' Danny California?
Yeah.
Sounds an awful lot like what is it? Last Dance. I think it's Last Dance with Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And Petie went, yeah, it's similar, but I don't think they intended. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna get all bitchy about it. That's kind of what happened. Like when Weird Al Yankovic wanted to do that I Perform This Way, the Lady Gaga song. And apparently he didn't talk to Lady Gaga. He talked to lawyers, and they said no. And it got out, and it was a huge furor. And then Lady Gaga found out and went, yes, no, team, go, stop. Yeah. It's permission, go and do it. I think Tom Petty just went, no. Legal team, stand down. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I don't want to kick up
the
fuss.
whole Weird Al thing with that, not to go off on another tangent, but he generally got, you know, tacit permission from everybody.
Right. He doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it.
He's a gentleman. He goes, I'm going to make fun of...
But the reason he does it specifically now, and especially with the Lady Gaga thing, was Amish Paradise, the Coolio thing. Coolio went nuts. And
he gave tacit permission and then didn't like the results.
Yes, that's what it was. So ever since then, Al was like, no, I'm going to, like, personally speak to whoever.
Right. He wants to have fun with his stuff, and he doesn't want to piss people off.
Yeah, and Coolio thought it was, you know, was disrespectful to his work and whatever, and that's fine. But
his work,
you know, to that song, it like diminished his song or whatever.
It apparently diminished his career to nothing.
And that's a great song. And he's Paradise.
Well, you know what it takes from.
What?
Pastime Paradise by Stevie Wonder.
Oh, really?
Not even Gangster's Paradise was an original song. Yeah. So I don't understand why Coolio even has much of a say in it, or at least not as much say as Stevie Wonder, because Stevie Wonder wrote the damn bed for the entire track.
Yeah, but he was parodying the Coolio song.
Yes.
I'm trying to think, did Al ever do any Tom Petty? I'm trying to think.
Maybe as a non-single album track. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never hit any Tom Petty as the singles.
Right.
So, but anyway. Digressing.
Yeah.
Now, did you hear what happened just the other night? We're recording on Sunday evening. This happened Saturday night.
No.
On SNL.
No, somebody was trying to tell me. I didn't see it.
What happened was, I mean, you know, SNL usually has their funny opening unless something serious has happened, like Trump getting elected, and you got that very somber hallelujah from Hillary Clinton, Kate McKinnon. This time, the show opened with, I believe his name is Jason Aldean. He's a country artist.
Oh, yeah.
This was the guy that was on stage at that country music festival in Las Vegas when the shot started.
Yeah.
He was at ground zero for this whole thing. And he survived. He did okay. His band was okay. They didn't have any injuries, at least in the band. And he opened the show with a bit speech about, you know, processing and stuff. And I was like, And then I thought, is he just going to... Oh, he's going to play. Oh, crap. What the hell is he going to play? Oh, guess what he played?
What did he play?
I Won't Back Down.
Yeah.
And I thought, that is the perfect nexus of healing right there. It's Petie, it's Vegas, it's the I was like, I tell you, SNL, you've had some pretty over the years.
Oh yeah, but they get it right.
Last year, this year, it's feeling like it's going to be another very well done year. Even some of their D Block sketches, which, you know, let's face it, are usually the dregs.
Yeah,
you know, pretty much everything up until Weekend Update. And
even that's a bit.
It's
shaky.
hit or miss, but it's usually the, you know, this time you're getting some decent stuff even after. Not saying decent by much.
Yeah.
I mean, I still say the worst episode of Mad TV is still better than most. But with Kate McKinnon in the cast, it was, you know, but we'll talk about SNL some other time. But I just thought that was great.
That's really
I mean, that
classy.
was like, I'm devastated over Las Vegas. I'm devastated over the passing of Tom Petty, and here they are melding it together.
Yeah.
I was just, I thought that was genius. Whoever came up with that.
Well, that was the Hallelujah thing as well, because Leonard Cohen had died that week as well.
Was it that week?
Yeah, it was like right before that. So it was also another nexus of...
You know, I looked at that as more of a commentary on the somber and the,
right,
and
but
the
levels
sadness
upon levels.
Well, yeah, I didn't even associate it with it at the time. So.
But no, good for Jason Aldean, man.
Yeah,
That's,
you know, I mean,
was...
I'm not going to listen to any of your music because I'm not a country music, at least a modern country music fan.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine.
I mean,
But...
you think he'll be okay?
No, I meant music-wise. I'm sure his music is fine, but...
No, I was saying it's like, Michael Reed doesn't want to listen to my music. I just don't know how to go on. I think I could do a retirement tour. No, I can't. He won't be there. So, one other fun little thing that happened to our good buddy Tom.
Yeah.
In '87, an arsonist.
I remember this. I was going to ask you about this. Yeah.
Set fire to his house in. Are you ready? Encino.
Okay.
I mean,
that doesn't mean a lot to people who aren't from California.
Yeah, those of you who live in Southern California are going, really? He lived in Encino? Yeah, he lived in Encino. I don't know how else to, you know.
Anyone who isn't from Encino only knows it from the Brendan Fraser movie.
Yeah.
So
take that and run with it.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, they set fire to his house, and get this. The firefighters were able to salvage most of his recording studio and the original masters that were there. They apparently survived the fire. And he got his famous Gibson Dove acoustic guitar was saved. So apparently they got there in time, you know, for it to not burn all the way down into the basement. I guess. I don't know the details. And he later rebuilt the house again on the same, you know, on the same location with more fire-resistant materials.
Right.
Which I don't know what those materials would be, but, you know, basically wood and, you know, gasoline. Not a good mix to build a house, I suppose. So I thought that was pretty good. He was also into transcendental meditation.
Was he?
I did not find that out until after he had passed.
that I didn't know.
So, and he had a couple of kids. What was it? Her name is, I'm looking at my notes here. Adria and Anna Kim.
Okay.
Anna Kim. That's a combination I haven't heard before.
Anna Kim. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Adria's the director, and Anna Kim is it's said an artist.
Okay.
So
She might have been the one. It was like Instagram or something. It was a huge like ding against I want to say Rolling Stone or somebody.
Was it Rolling Stone?
Might have been Rolling Stone. I might be mistaken on that, but it was basically.
I don't think it was.
My father's not dead yet, and you've jumped or you've rushed to conclusions.
Yeah.
Yes. He's had a health issue. He's had a cardiac arrest. Blah blah blah. You know, and it wasn't, again, it was like you said earlier, it was 18 hours before he was gone.
And I felt bad because he passed within 24 hours of the whole Las Vegas thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of the, you know, remembering Tom Petty things was pushed way down below the fold or down on the webpage or whatever because of this event. Now, that's the way it works. Let's face it, you know, Tom Petty's passing is a bad thing. coverage of the shooting. I understand
much more. Yeah,
it's more important. But at a certain point, I just stopped watching news for 2 days because I got all the information I needed.
How much do you need to see about this guy?
How many guns? Like, oh, it was 28 guns and not 27?
It was 42
well, now
guns.
I have more information that I can do absolutely nothing with.
Right.
So I just stopped watching because that's all it was. I'd flip it on for a second and go, are we back to... Nope, we're still talking about it.
It was like when, wasn't it... Was it Farrah Fawcett who passed away, and then a week later Michael Jackson died, or a couple days later?
Possible.
There was somebody who was fairly famous.
Yeah.
And they passed away, and then like 2 days later, Michael Jackson passed away, and it's like you get completely overshadowed, and there's nothing you can do about that. But...
Especially if you're the person who's getting overshadowed because you've passed away.
Right. Well, yeah.
You know, I mean, fans of Farrah Fawcett, much like fans of Tom Petty, like, really, we're not gonna have a big moment because something else happened? Like, yeah, unfortunately,
that's how the world works.
That's the way that's the way it works. Now, one of the cool things about Tom Petty, do you know the name of his first band?
No.
It wasn't the Heartbreakers.
Okay.
He grew up in, I believe it was Gainesville, Florida. I want to say Gainesville, Florida.
Gainesville, Florida.
And his first band was a band called Mudcrutch.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. If that may be a term you only know in Florida. But basically, in 2008, he went, let's get the band back together. And he got his old friends back together. And this isn't like, I'm sorry, I'm touring with whatever, No, these were just guys that had gone on to become accountants, truck drivers, They did the thing that, let's face it, a lot of people do. They played music for a while, and then they said, I'm not making any money.
Yeah, I got to
I need to earn a living. And he brought them back.
That's hilarious.
And did not one, but 2 records. They did a record in 2008, and then Mudcrutch 2 in 2016, so like just last year.
Wow.
So that's a cool thing about Tom that I like. So right around 1996, Tom Petty changed record labels.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was on MCA for pretty much all of his career, or subsidiary of MCA, and he moved over to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
The first thing he did for Warner Brothers was the soundtrack to She's the One. Do you remember that?
That's a Rachel Lee Cook movie?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
This was what, 96?
Okay.
So
I didn't know he did soundtracks.
Well, apparently not very often, but he did that one. In case this is like he did the entire soundtrack.
Yeah.
Not like he contributed a song.
Anything come out of it? Anything big come out of it?
No. I hate to say it, but pretty much with his move to Warner Brothers, the hits done dried up. I mean, after She's the One, we had Echo. It debuted top 10, and it was his last gold record. After that, I hate to say it, but nothing really sold. Probably not because the material was subpar or anything like that. What coincided right around the mid to late 90s?
What?
Piracy.
Oh.
Downloading. That's, that
took the bottom out of everybody.
Exactly. Now it's like it debuted at number 1 with, 38,000 albums sold. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if you sold 38,000
your
albums,
career was over.
You're off the label.
Yeah. Now it's a huge.
Do you remember the days when like the new Backstreet Boys 1 million copies the first day?
Yeah.
That was like, wow, it would sell 10 million in the first, year. Getting to 10 million now, it can still happen. Not very often. No. So
and the thing is, most people aren't even buying albums. They're buying singles. They're buying songs piecemeal.
Yeah, that's one of the things, and I blame iTunes for that.
Yeah, the only good thing about the only way to look at it in a positive light is instead of an album with 4 hits and 6 filler songs, you only have to buy the 4 hits. They only put out the 4 hits. And I can respect that from a certain point of view.
Yeah, but the age of being able to sit down and experience an artist's vision, it's in my opinion, it's almost like reading the first, 3rd, and 7th chapter of a book, and then going, all right, I'm good, I'm out. Those were pretty fun. I don't need to know the rest.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, the reason people feel comfortable buying piecemeal like that is because of shit motherfucking labels that would get a band in that looked good, hire a hit maker or a writer to do one song that's going to be the hit, and have the rest of the album filled with absolute shit. And after a while, people notice, like, there's really only one good song, and it's not like the other songs. So you look at the credits, and it's like the credits are the same for every song but one, the hit. People aren't stupid. I mean, they are stupid. They're stupid as shit. But they're not. Well, look where we are with not going to be political. No. Over time, they learn. Oh, I see what they're doing. They're bamboozling us. They're bringing us in with the hit single to buy the album, and the album is total crap. And that hurts the bands that put a lot of time in crafting a singular word. Try to isolate any song from, Animals or not saying that's the greatest album ever, but as an example.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they even fell prey to that kind of thinking, I think, with Dark Side of the Moon, a masterpiece of a record. What's the one song that doesn't fit, that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb on that record? Boom, 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 boom. Money.
Oh yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. It's a great song. It just doesn't fit the album.
It does and it doesn't, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Now, whether that was a record label's thing, like we need a hit, or whether they wanted to do that, that's the dilemma.
Yeah.
You don't know if this, cheap chicanery is something that a band did because they got lazy, or the record label did because they wanted to sell more units.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard to distinguish between a band with integrity that may fall short but still has some good stuff, and a band that goes, sure, we'll put we'll bring in a hired gun to write our hit single, and then fill the album with a bunch of our crap that no one really cares about.
Yep.
So anyway, I do have one last really interesting just tidbit about Tom Petty. Petty married a girl named Jane Benyo in 1974. Okay. Now, they divorced in 96, but they were together in the 80s when Stevie Nicks overheard her say that she had met Tom Petty at the age of 17. She misheard that, and it led to her song, The Edge of 17. That was the inspiration.
Interesting.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, one of the really bizarre things is that Stevie Nicks also inspired a song that Tom Petty wrote, and that turned out to be the hit.
Medication time. Medication time.
We ran out of time. I will tell you next week.
Tonight, Billy Names a Pod was conceived, written, and performed by Michael Raitt and Dan Bauman, with Abdul Beni Hassan as the sound of splintering wood. Research, transportation, and exasperated looks by Courtney Lohner. Technical assistance by Cubase, Pro Tools, Skynet, QLab, Deep Thought, Big Brother, and Eddie, your shipboard computer. Financial consideration provided by the Wayne Foundation, Stark Industries, the Piranha Brothers, and LexCorp. Legal counsel with the Office of Howard & Fine. I always have been slightly unnerved by the title, Don't Do Me Like That. Our intro music was written by Tim Akers. This podcast was sponsored by Deep Shag Records and is a production of Audio Primate. Throw us a couple stars on iTunes, why don't you? Listen and watch on YouTube, listen on SoundCloud, stream us on Stitcher, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or email us, comlink@billionpod.com. Till this happens again, I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Michael Raitt.
Hello, Z!
Audio Primate.